Welcome back inside the Nick and Astis Show on Sports Radio WGAM The Game, online at WGAMthegame.com, and on Twitter at WGAM The Game. Joined here in a moment by St. Anselm head coach Pat Murphy, part of the St. Anselm Coaches Show. We'll do it every Tuesday at about 12:30, part of the Nick and Astis Show, which of course runs Monday through Friday from noon to 2. Had Coach Murphy on last week previewing the season opener against Kutztown, which did not go as well as everyone hoped, although Kutztown is a national power, a Division II stalwart, and they took care of the Hawks 58-6. Kutztown is number 12 in the country. Their quarterback, Kevin Morton, threw 6 touchdowns. But there were some positives to be taken from that game, and again, we'll touch on those coming up in just a few minutes with St. Anselm head coach Pat Murphy. Also, P.J. Senatore, 3-year offensive lineman, 3-year starter, rather, on the offensive line. He'll join us as well coming up towards the end of the hour. And then at the top of next hour, we'll be joined by Sean Sendall, Friday Night Light host and correspondent. He'll help preview the big matchup. It's the Peters of Nashua Game of the Week. And it's number 1 Pinkerton against number 2 Exeter. The Blue Hens, of course, the defending Division I champs. Pinkerton had a great year last year, fell short in the championship game. So Saturday we have a rematch of the Division I final between those two schools. This is the Nick and Astis Show. Your phone calls, of course, welcome at 603-883-9900. And again, Coach Murphy coming up in just a few minutes as part of the St. Anselm Coaches Show. P.J. Senatore, of course, joins us as well. Let's go over a little bit of the numbers, though, from the season opener last week at Kutztown. 58-6 was the final. It was 35-0 after the first quarter. St. A's, of course, trotting out a new starting quarterback in that one. The starter for the last couple of years was gone, and that, of course, is Michael Pierce. Pierce was a multi-dimensional threat, and the Hawks still trying to, I guess, find a new signal caller. Of course, another big hole to fill was at the wide receiver spot, where for years Mark Wilson had held it down. In fact, Wilson pretty much owns every St. A's receiving record there is. In fact, played so well for the Hawks, got a look from the Arizona Cardinals in the offseason, signed a deal in May before ultimately, I believe, being released. But obviously his legacy still there, and the Hawks with some shoes to fill both at the quarterback and wide receiver positions. And Coach Murphy broke that down a little bit last week. Talked about some of the enthusiasm in camp. In fact, this is his 5th year with the Hawks. He said there was the most enthusiasm, the most excitement in camp that he had felt perhaps ever since arriving up on the hilltop a few years prior. So it'll be interesting to see how the Hawks respond Friday night. They're back on the field, on the road, a conference game at Assumption, New England Northeast 10 divisional game. So it'll be interesting to see how the Hawks can respond. Can they put this Kutztown loss behind them and really start to focus on Northeast 10 play? That is obviously the challenge facing this group as they get ready. 8 days to get ready for this one. It was a Thursday night opener last week, so they get that extra day on top of the week to get it rolling. But let's take a look at some of the numbers here before we bring on head coach Pat Murphy. Now, the passing game, Ray Doucette goes 5 of 8, 52 yards. Did throw a touchdown pass in this game, threw 1 interception as well. And Stephen Cuepa, 6 of 18, struggled a little bit, just 45 yards. No turnovers, but no touchdown passes either. Greg Bell, kind of a big bruiser back, 9 carries, 40 yards, a good average at 4.4 a pop, broke a long of 16. And Keith Charles, expected a little more production from him. Keith Charles similar to the NFL's Jamal Charles, I think. One of those smaller backs, has an explosive gear, can turn it on in the open field. Only touched it 6 times, 6 carries, 10 yards. Never was able to get anything going. His long was 3. Although Charles did pull in 2 catches for 39 yards and scored the lone touchdown for the Hawks, so not all was lost for the junior Keith Charles. Then you had Akeem Williams, 2 catches, 21 yards. Eric Feehan, which I believe is a Bedford native, 3 catches, 18 yards. Justin Bernard was a growing piece of the passing game towards the end of last season, just 2 catches and 9 yards. So plenty of room for improvement as part of a 58-6 loss against number 12 nationally ranked Kutztown, a real good team. I think they're better than number 12 based on what I saw last season when these two teams squared off up on the hilltop. They're deep, they're big, and they are athletic. And I'm sure that Coach Murphy will confirm that when talking about the 2012 version of this Kutztown team. So he'll join us momentarily, trying to get him on the phone here, part of the St. Anselm Coaches Show. This is the Nick and Astis Show here on Sports Radio WGAM The Game. 603-883-9900 is the phone number. PJ Senatore, offensive lineman, will join us as well in just a few moments. But a disappointing loss to begin with against Kutztown, and the game really in hand before it got going. 35-0 after the first quarter, 45-6 after the first half, although St. A's did make a little bit more of a game of it in the second half, holding Kutztown to just 13 points. Assumption, that game should be a little bit more competitive. Now, traditionally, Assumption, kind of a so-so team in the Northeast 10. They'll win some here, they'll lose some there. Never really a major threat. I mean, you take a look at some other teams in the conference like Bentley, even like a team like Pace, who St. A's beat last year. Those are teams with more traditional muscle, more prestige, so to speak, in the conference than Assumption. But that being said, each year, obviously, as you know, is new. Each team revamped, and we'll take a look at some of the additions that Assumption made over the offseason and how they fared, obviously, in Week 1 as well as they get ready to host the Hawks on Friday night. That's a 7 o'clock game, by the way, at Assumption. And then the home opener for the Hawks coming up September 14th, which is a week from Friday. They'll take on Stonehill at 7. All right, defensive coordinator Rob Eggerling is ready to go and is on the phone here instead of Coach Murphy, who apparently had to attend a last-minute meeting. So the defensive coordinator, Rob Eggerling, now joins us here on the Nick and Astis Show. Coach, how are you? And thanks for stepping in here last minute.
Oh, not a problem. Thank you for having us.
We appreciate it. First of all, Coach, what happened on last week on Thursday against Kutztown? It seemed like you ran into a well-oiled machine, for lack of a better phrase. This Kutztown team, I know from last year, was pretty good then, and they seem like they're just as good now. Just give me a quick recap, I guess, of the Week 1 loss.
Yeah, no, not a problem. We ran into a very strong opponent down there. Obviously, a nationally ranked opponent for the last 3 years. Going down there, we had to play our top game to have an opportunity to pull a big upset down there in Week 1. Came out, right from the get-go. We had our first drive stalled out right away, and it was really the battlefield position early on. And they just, they jumped on us quick in the first quarter, and as we kind of settled down and fought back, it was kind of a little late. Really we gave up 4 big plays right at the mid first quarter to second quarter, kind of put the game away for them, so to speak, in terms of knockout punch early on, and then we had to kind of settle down and battle back, and we just really couldn't get anything going offensively. I thought they did a good job running around making plays, and then defensively, like I said, we saw some good things, believe it or not, out of a turnout like that, but we just, they scored 4 touchdowns on 5 plays, and that really was it. And as I talk to guys, anytime you go into a big, it was a great environment, but you go into something like that, we had to eliminate it. And again, there was really a coverage breakdown of 1, and the rest was just we got to make the plays when we're in. We had about 4 missed tackles on a couple of those plays, and they're very good, and we just can't afford to give those opportunities. So it was definitely, in terms of a national stage, a team like Kutztown, Coach Monica is doing a great job. We had to be, we had to limit the mistakes and obviously hope and cause them to make a few, which we ran into, like you said, an oil machine offensively, probably the best offense that I've seen since we've been here, not only from Kutztown, but in terms of through our league. They had 9 returning starters on their offensive side who've been playing for 3 straight years, and they didn't miss a beat. I mean, they literally did not make a mistake. So it was a tough opener, but it's something that our guys saw, and there's a lot of things that we can correct on, and just got to get better for this coming week.
You're listening to the St. Anselm Coaches Show, part of the Nick and Astis Show here on Sports Radio WGAM The Game. The defensive coordinator for the football team, Rob Eggerling, joining us here on the Nick and Astis Show. Coach, what do you say as a coach to your players during the game when things aren't going your way and, frankly, you're down 35-0 after 1? How do you keep the guys engaged, I guess, from a psychological standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, really, biggest thing we're just saying is just settle down and really play. I mean, first game every season, that opener, the adrenaline's running. We got to tell them, listen, just trust what you're taught to do. If a play happens, a big play happens, good or bad, same thing. You got to react and play the next play. So if we make a great play, they're going to come back and snap the ball. Vice versa, if we give up a play, you still got to come back up and stop them. So really, we're just more staying positive. Got to make the plays that you're in, okay, and really just understand, like, hey, they're not doing anything that we haven't told you. There's nothing that we haven't practiced. So, I mean, everything was really just trying to keep them even keeled and just saying, okay, now just go out there and enjoy yourself and run and make some plays. And then, like I said, when it was a quick 35-0 after 1, and all I just kept telling the guys, and I know Coach was on the upside, really was just, guys, they haven't really earned it in terms of, our speak of, they're driving 12, 15 plays, 80 yards. Okay, there you go. They earned that. That was a good run. We're giving them opportunities, short field position, 3 big plays, missed tackles, and so on. So really just try to tell them to settle down and, stay focused. Don't lose, your focus of what it is to do, because it could turn ugly if you do, and they're not going to stop. They're on the other side. They want to score, or they want to stop the ball. So it's one of those things, really just trying to keep their poise and focus.
Hawks defensive coordinator Rob Eggerling joining us on the St. Anselm Coaches Show, part of the Nick and Astis Show here on Sports Radio WGAM The Game. The Hawks fall in their opener at number 12, cuts down 58-6. But, Coach, you did mention that you saw some positives on the defensive side of the football. What were they?
You know what? It was our tempo of how we were able to line up. Again, we had to change our defense from last spring, or I should say this past spring going into this fall. So in terms of assignments, we didn't have any assignment breakdowns in terms of guys getting lined up, get themselves ready. There was no issues in substitutions, or no issues, guys in the wrong gaps, just guys doing other things. Everyone was really in position. We just, unfortunately, weren't making the plays when we were there. In our terms of making tackles, we had the most missed tackles we've had, from last year. So that's why I said, we gave them opportunities. But on the flip side, with the positives, like I said, of being lined up, being able to be in a position. Those are some good things, and I felt schematically from where we were last year, and we gave up points to them last year to another, good team they were last year. We were fundamentally sound, much better than last year, and I thought last year was our worst game we played defensively in terms of, guys being, lined up where they need to be in a position to make a play. So there were some good things. We just, like I said, got to make some plays, and we were going to give them some things. We know we were going to give them some things up, and they exposed those, and they just kept going to them. They didn't alter for them, so we just had to make them earn the yardage.
St. Anselm defensive coordinator Rob Eggerling join us here on the St. A's Coaches Show, part of the Nick and Astis Show. Coach, give me some names. Who stood out? Who impressed you, either defensively or offensively, in the Hawks' loss against Kutztown?
Yeah, on the defense side of the ball, Justin Waltzer, sophomore defensive tackle for us, Josh Cheevers, defensive tackle, Chris Bent, our senior linebacker, one of our captains. We moved him from a weak side backer to our middle backer. And then Trevor Jesse, a junior defensive back. All of them had very solid games. Alex Bosenhart had a lot of tackles. He is a running machine in terms of just finding the ball. So those guys, like I said, we saw some positives. Those guys playing solid, games. Offensively, I think again what we did. Greg Bell had a good game. In terms of what he was doing, he just broke his pinky 3 days earlier, so we weren't sure with him. So he was cast up, but he had a solid game. He got player of the game for the offensive side in terms of that. I felt again our Steve Koopa, first year player, coming in, getting the most reps. Later on last year, he was getting work in. Then he had an injury his freshman year. So we saw some things, on the offensive side that we just need to understand where we're at. And we had a lot of first-year guys. James Gibbons, our center, sophomore for us, getting his first career start. So there were some good, some positive things on both sides of the ball, and as well as special teams.
You're listening to the St. Anselm Coaches Show, part of the Nick and Astis Show, as we're joined by Hawks defensive coordinator Rob Eggerling. Now, Coach, you're on the road, conference game, Friday night at Assumption. What are some of the changes you need to do, one? And two, how do you prepare for Assumption, I guess, as a team? What do they bring to the table? What are the new challenges this week that the Hawks are going to have to figure out?
Yeah, well, first we got to tackle better as a defense, and we got to just catch the ball offensively. That was one of the things we didn't catch the ball well. We had numerous drops, and then, like I said, the most tackles we've had in a while, which is not a good thing to do. So we got to, become a better tackling team, and then obviously catching the ball when we can and running through tackles offensively. What Assumption brings, again, a little different style offense that we saw last week in terms of last week was a true spread out, 4 wides, 5 wides. Here I think they have some very good tight ends. They have a very good running back. Their quarterbacks really are a dual threat. They'll run some option on you from what we saw. So they're going to do a lot of different things. Run game, they're very balanced. They're going to be more of a running team. Again, they'll throw some play action at you. So we got to be a little bit fundamentally sound when it comes to our pass responsibilities off of play action, because they're going to run the ball. That's, I think, again, that's their thing that we have to stop, is them running the ball. And then obviously defensively, they're a physical defense. They definitely want to get in your face and challenge the receivers and set a tempo on that side of the ball for them. So we just got to understand what we need and prepare them for that. And I think we'll be okay going down the opening conference play for both teams. Well,
Coach, certainly good luck, and we'll be watching. Thanks a bunch for joining us. We appreciate the time as St. A's gets ready for Assumption. Good luck on Friday, Coach.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
That's defensive coordinator Rob Eggerling joining us here as part of the St. Anselm Coaches Show on the Nick and Astis Show. Coming up, we'll keep it rolling as we speak with offensive lineman senior P.J. Senatore. He is next here on the St. Anselm Coaches Show, part of the Nick and Astis Show, Sports Radio, WGAM The Game. So what's the plan?
Nick and Astis on WGAM The Game. Call 603-883-9900 and add to the controlled chaos. Sports Radio, WGAM The Game.
All right, a few minutes left here on the St. A's Coaches Show. We're joined now by offensive lineman P.J. Senatore. P.J., what's up, buddy? How are you? Thanks for the time, and welcome to the Nick and Astis Show.
Hi, how are you doing?
We are always good here, sir. Let me ask you this. During the chaos, when was it, Thursday, during the opener, the loss against Kutztown, you guys fell down early. Who are some of the leaders on the sideline? Give me a guy who kind of just gathers the players up and say, hey, guys, let's continue to fight here for the rest of the game. I mean, who do you look to in times of crisis like we saw Thursday night?
Well, pretty much everyone. Everyone was hyped and ready to go. A lot of defensive guys, after they gone through what happened in the last series, get up and start bringing the sidelines up. Definitely the two captains, Ethan Sylvain and Chris Bent, they're pretty good leaders. And honestly, we looked at everyone. There's good chemistry on this team this year. Everyone's excited. Everyone's, ready to play football. So, that's kind of a hard question because we're all on the same page together.
P.J. Senatore joining us here on the St. Anselm Coaches Show, part of the Nick and Astis Show, as the Hawks get ready for Week 2 against Assumption. Now, you're a 3-year starter up front, a new quarterback behind the offensive line this year. 2 quarterbacks saw action on Thursday. Talk a little bit about what they bring to the table, trying to replace longtime starter Michael Pierce.
Well, Steve Koopa is a dual threat. He's got some speed. He's got a very good arm. But he's a little younger, a little less experienced than Ray Doucette, who played at Bryant for a couple of years, and he's, just as fast and has just as good of an arm. So, I don't have any doubt that we'll be seeing them being platooned in games, using them for different situations. I mean, they have both equal attributes, and honestly, the competition between them is very high, and it makes them both better as a whole. So, I don't doubt that they'll both be getting time in games this year.
PJ Senatore joining us on the St. A's Coaches Show, part of the Nick and Astis Show. PJ, a 3-year starter up front for the Hawks. What do we know about Assumption, PJ, and specifically what kind of a look are you going to have to deal with from an offensive line standpoint when you go up against their defense Friday night?
Well, that's a good question. They're a very high motor team. They come off the ball well. They want to come off and hit you in the mouth. Certainly, they're not the greatest cut sound. Cut sound's a very good team defensively, and I don't think we're going to see a team of that high caliber in a while. But as Assumption goes, their strength is their D-line. They're in a 41 front, and I'm not taking away from their D-line at all, but they come off the ball well. They have high energy. They're excited, and we got to match their tone. We got to come off the ball as fast as they do.
PJ Senatore, offensive lineman for the St. Anselm Hawks, joining us on the St. A's Coaches Show, part of the Nick and Astis Show here on Sports Radio WGAM The Game. Now, I assume, PJ, that the staff will be implementing a few more plays offensively for Week 2. Is that correct? What kind of changes have you been working on, or rather not changes but additions to the offensive playbook this week in preparation for Assumption?
I don't think we've made very much changes on the offense. I think we're just going to continue to do what we do and continue to play hard up front. And I don't think we really need to change anything. We just need to have maybe a little bit better mentality than we did at Cutsound. I know we have a very young offensive line, and I think the nerves were itching at some of the younger offensive line members. But honestly, I don't see any changes made. I just see, a better preparation mentally for the game. And I think if we come off the ball fast and if we're mentally prepared and we're all hyped and ready to go, in our offense, we don't really need any changes necessarily. We just need a better mental state than we had last game.
Final question for you, PJ. Give me a key to the game Friday night. What do you guys need to do specifically to get a victory against Assumption? I've
said it before, we need to come off the ball. We need to be ready to play. We need to be mentally prepared. We need to go through film. We need to know what we're doing. And honestly, that's the key to any game. You need to just
all right, thanks.
Come off the ball and be ready to go.
Thanks a bunch, PJ. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week. Good luck against Assumption. More from the Nick and Astis Show in a moment here on Sports Radio, WGAM The Game.